Hey, we're still live here at E3 at PlayStation, and the hits keep coming. I'm joined by David Cage.
Hi.
You are director at Quantic Dream, and you are working on this really fascinating game, Detroit Become Human. I was talking to Sean Layden earlier. I was talking to Scott Rohde. We were raving about this thing. Tell me, give me the elevator pitch on this Detroit Become Human.
Oh, I'm very bad at elevator speech. I'm the worst person on earth. If you give me an hour, then I can be good, maybe. But no, I mean, Detroit is a neo-noir thriller. It's set in a near future in the city of Detroit, of course, Michigan. And in this future, there are androids that look, speak, move exactly like human beings. And they have replaced human in most common jobs.
Wow.
So they are teachers, workers, babysitters, whatever. And they look exactly like human beings, but they are machines and they are treated as such. So in Detroit, you are going to play only androids, because we didn't want to create another story where the humans would be the good guys and the androids the bad guys,
right.
and they have a virus and you want to kill them before they kill you. We wanted to take a different angle and say, okay, what if they were the good guys and we humans were the bad guys?
Fascinating.
So that's exactly the starting point. And some androids in this world start to have a strange behavior. I mean, they start to leave without any reason, or they commit suicide, which is really strange for a machine, of course. And some of them, few of them, start to have an aggressive behavior against humans. So there's obviously something wrong with them, but we don't know what. And that's really the starting point of the story.
I mean, just hearing you explain that, my mind is clamoring with all of these, analogies to things that are happening in actual culture right now. It's really, really cool. So, this is what I love about great science fiction, is that it's about actual things. It's about actual parts of our society, about parts of our culture. So that's why it's so exciting to me to see a game like this. And we're seeing some footage right now. We saw some of this at the press conference, a big PlayStation press conference the other night. You guys have done Heavy Rain, you did Beyond Two Souls, actually going even further back, you did Fahrenheit, or as it's known here in the United States, Indigo Prophecy. Which name do you like better, by the way?
Fahrenheit.
Yeah, I do too, I think. And you did Beyond Two Souls most recently, out now on PS4. Here we go with Detroit Become Human. And it's all about choice and consequence, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the first thing to know is that there is more than one playable character. It's pretty much like Heavy Rain.
Yeah.
We have different androids that we can play. So at the moment we have announced Kara as our very first playable character. And here we're at T3 to show the second playable character called Connor. And maybe there's more, who knows?
Who's to say?
Yeah. And the player will play them through different scenes. This is pretty much the same way Heavy Rain worked. And scene after scene, you tell the story. And what it was very important to us was not to tell the story through cutscenes, but to let the player build his own story through his actions, through his choices. So each player will have a different versions of this story, and this is really what we found exciting about this project. And of course, all characters can die, so there is no game over in this game. If you don't pay enough attention to your characters or make too many bad choices, you may lose one of your characters, as was the case on Heavy Rain.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, I've just loved, Quantic Dream to me is a company that's just not scared to take really, really esoteric concepts or really, really interesting risks creatively. And I think that's what's so exciting.
Well, actually, we're very scared.
Yeah.
But we do it anyway.
Yeah, you do it anyway. That's what you got to do, right?
No, but we were very lucky also to get the support for 10 years now of Sony. Year after year. I mean, we came here in 2006 with our first short, which was called The Casting, that you can still find on YouTube. And that was exactly 10 years ago, and it was a dream come true for us to be
And I remember that video very well.
Yeah, and it was a dream come true for us to come to E3 and be on Sony's booth.
Yeah.
And here we are 10 years later, presenting Detroit for the first time in the US, so it's...
I mean, it's tremendous, and I mean, I think it really speaks to the accomplishments of the studio. And I just love the theme, and I love the style. Like, you guys have always been had great style in your titles, but this one, I think it's got to be partly due to the power of PS4. You know, really being able to push the visual envelope. I mean, some of the stuff we're seeing right now is just knockout. You know, it's incredibly impressive.
Well, we love developing engines, to be honest with you. We develop, each new game is a different engine. So we're probably one of the very few studios in the world to do that, because that's probably insane. But with Detroit, we wanted a very specific look.
Yeah.
And we wanted to develop the sense of cinematography in the engine. So we needed to develop some specific features about the lighting, What we call physically based shaders is the fact that all the materials react correctly to the light. We have developed what we call close-up lighting. So it's like in a film, when we have close-up shots of the characters, they always have a specific lighting set, so they always look great.
Cool.
Lighting, shadows, what we call physical cameras, which is the fact that our lenses are really based on real physics of real optics. So it's a lot of tiny things that
you add them all up. You
exactly,
know?
and maybe gamers won't care about all this, but
they just know it looks great.
Yeah,
it looks great.
Yeah.
So it's not lost on me. I remember maybe 3-4 years ago, you guys released a video called Kara.
Absolutely.
You know, and it was actually really powerful about this robotic woman or an android woman being kind of constructed and kind of realizing who she is, trying to get away. Kind of soul-wrenching, actually, to watch that, but it was powerful stuff. And I think maybe it's become clear that that was maybe a prototype or sort of a thought experiment into this title.
Yeah, well, it was not about Detroit. Actually, it was just a technical demo at the time. I just wanted to write a short piece, 5 minutes, and we wanted to test different emotions. So I needed to write a short script where my character will very quickly go from one emotion to another. And but the piece, when it became so successful, I mean, it's been viewed I don't know how many million times. It won an award at the LA Short Fest, which was a premiere for a video game, you know, technology. But I had no other plan beyond that. And actually, the question that people kept asking us was, what happens to Kara when she leaves the factory? And actually, I didn't have a clue. And but I was really haunted by this question, because I thought, yeah, what happens to her?
Yeah.
And so I had to imagine the world outside the factory and what would happen to her when she leaves the factory, and that was really the starting point for Detroit.
Powerful stuff, and again, that's what I love about you and I love about Quantic Dream, is you're willing to take that stuff on, because it's not exactly like a standard blockbuster premise, right? It's a little deeper, it's a little more intellectual, but you guys have had some, you know, you guys have performed very well. I mean, Heavy Rain was a big hit. Beyond Two Souls did great, had a lot of Hollywood talent. I wanted to ask you a little bit about, you know, in terms of the interface, in terms of the controls, are we veering a little closer to Heavy Rain or a little bit closer to Beyond Two Souls, or?
Well, you know, game after game, we try different things. So we try different interfaces, and we always try to see how we can improve the way we tell stories through gameplay.
Sure.
And here, I would say, no, it's a more traditional interface. We want a very simple, classic interface, because we want the challenge to be in the mind of the player and not necessarily just on his thumbs.
Sure, yeah.
So you navigate, you explore this environment, because I know that when we present our games, the first thing people ask is, okay, I get the story, it looks great, but how does it play? What is there to play? Is there just a series of cutscenes? No, I mean, game after game, we try to explain that, no, you're in control of the character, you really decide what you want to do, you interact with your environment, you interact with the other characters, and your decisions shape the story. And what we want to do with this game is really the most bending experience, the most branching experience we've ever created. And really, again, letting the player tell his own stories through his interactions.
So one of the big themes coming out of this PlayStation's press conference and E3 in general is the rise of VR. And VR is, you know, becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. I can only imagine for somebody like you, you're really invested in storytelling, you love sort of interactive storytelling. VR must be very interesting to you. I mean, what are your thoughts about it?
It is very interesting. It's, you know, to be honest with you, when I first heard about it, I was kind of skeptical. Like, okay, we had 3D before, you know, and it didn't make it, and we had different ideas like this that never came together, really. And is VR just another of them? And then I tested the system, and I was really surprised by especially the sense of presence that you have, which is totally new in our world, because suddenly you are in front of someone, and this person is in front of you.
And your body begins to almost react to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's so fascinating, and it's definitely very inspiring. I think it's not just a system on which you can just port existing games and say, look, this is the VR version. I think you really need to design for VR and maybe find new answers, maybe invent new things, because the system itself is so powerful and so different that you need to come up with new ideas in order to really use it.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff, and we've got some, you know, we're getting some of the big IPs are sort of jumping in. You've got Batman, you know, we've got Star Wars. So, I mean, I feel like that was one of the big stories to come out of this E3 is really VR is here, and it's becoming more and more legitimized every day, thanks to great creators working on it. I think the other story to come out of E3, at least for me, is the rise of narrative, or maybe the second rise of narrative, because, I mean, I think this was really evident in PlayStation's press conference. I mean, God of War looked fantastic, and I mean, it was this side of that universe we've never seen before. You know, we obviously have Detroit, Become Human, what you're working on, looks sensational. It really got a rise out of people. And I mean, it was just game after game after game, really felt like they wanted to tell a deeper story. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, this is something we believed in, well, years and years ago. And we were a little bit alone when we started talking about all this, even around Indigo Prophecy time, you know, saying, you know, maybe storytelling can be a great addition to existing games, and maybe emotion is a great thing in games too. And some people laughed at us at the time, but today the situation has changed, and not because of us, just because it's a natural evolution of the industry. Storytelling is great. It makes people get involved, interested from the first second to the last second, and I think any type of game can benefit from a good and solid story and good characters. So yeah, I'm really happy, really glad to see all this coming together and more games having better and better stories.
That's great, and I've got to ask you, I'd be remiss to not ask you this while I've got you here. Is there a game, is there a story from a game in the last, you know, maybe few years that you've played that you're like, that is a killer story, that's a wonderful story? I'd be curious.
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, I'm a big fan of Fumeto Ueda, and he's the creator of Ico and Shadow of the Colossus and The Last Guardian. And I really like this guy because I think he has a sense of poetry and a sense of storytelling that is very different from what I'm doing.
Sure.
But he manages to tell very interesting and deep and emotional stories, and in Shadow of the Colossus and Ico, without any dialogue, which is something absolutely amazing. But there are many great stories. I loved Two Brothers. It was a
good.
Wonderful story. I mean, there are so many examples like this these days that it's difficult to pick up one.
Yeah. For me, it was The Last of Us. I felt like that was just a really powerful accomplishment. Uncharted 4 also extremely impressive. I think Naughty Dog has really been looking great lately.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Detroit Become Human. I have to look out for that. It's that B that mixes me up. Detroit Become Human. It's coming to PS4.
Yes.
Do you have a time frame in mind, or is that still being discussed?
No, we have not announced any release date for now.
So it's still under works. Deep in development.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, very deep in development. But I'm very excited. This one is hugely on my radar.
Thank you.
I've loved your last few games. This one looks like it's just right up my alley. I love the neo-noir. I love artificial humans. I love all that stuff. So you made this game for me. And
Absolutely.
I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I also want to thank you for stopping by to chat.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
PlayStation